world needs you to create, to question, to care. At Thompson Rivers University, choose your path, and we'll help you get there every step of the way. On campus or online. Shape the world you want to see and find your true.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Thursday Talks. Today's theme is Finding Success After Graduating. My name is Carolina, and I'm an International Marketing Coordinator here at TRU World. And I have two special guests today joining us for this discussion on what's life after you graduate from TRU. And they're going to share their personal stories and their tips on what you can do, whether you're a new student, a fresh graduate, what you can do to really get started with your career. So I'm going to ask Yasir and Assetou to please turn on your cameras and mics so we can start this conversation. Hello.
Hi.
How are you, Assetou?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm excited for today. Yasir, welcome.
Thank you for having me as well.
So I'm going to ask you both to first introduce yourselves and tell me where you're from, what you studied at TRU, which year you've graduated, so you know the whole introduction, the whole summary. Assetou, if you want to start.
Okay. My name is Assetou, also known as Assi. I'm originally from Mali, and I came to TRU in 2012, if I'm not wrong. I studied sociology, specifically research marketing. And yeah, I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts.
Nice. And Yasir?
Cool. Yeah, my name is Yasir. I graduated with a Master's of Education in 2019 from TRU. I'm originally from Pakistan. Fun fact, I actually came for the MBA and then I switched out. A lot of people, they reach out to me for MBA advice. I'm not the person for that because I only lasted one semester.
So you guys have extensive experience at TRU. I met you both while I was a student myself. So can you tell me a little bit about how was your time at TRU? Because you were at TRU in different years, you've studied different programs. So how was your overall experience? What did you find it really was the hallmark of your TRU experience? You know, when you look back at university and you're like, oh, I really missed this about my time as a student.
Okay, I can just go first, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, when I landed, I vividly remember it was snowing everywhere. It was the middle of January. The campus just blew me away. I mean, your pamphlets do a pretty good job as it is, but when you actually show up to the campus, you're like, wow, I'm in a new country. I'm in an actual university. And it makes you feel like you're a part of something big, almost like you're at the brink of the next phase of your life, which it actually is. So for me personally, the campus blew me away. The people in the orientation did a really good job of just foreshadowing what the next 2 years will look like for me. They went out of their way to help me out. I wasn't really good with documentation. They were telling me what to do and whatnot. And I think that really paved the way for the kind of mentorship TRU provides its students, not just in terms of their education, their courses that they're taking, but even with extracurricular activities. I found my entire time at TRU, even excluding the academics, shaped me into who I am now, even after graduation.
That's awesome.
Well, I feel like you and I came with different seasons. I was summer, beginning of fall, really. And I was overly prepared. I'm a planner and my mother is a planner. And so I came with my mom and I was super ready for a lot of things. So I had a bit of a different path, I'd say, like where I just want to do the fun stuff and really explore campus. But it was amazing. Like, honestly, I had the greatest time. First of all, I was surprised by Kamloops. I thought it would be a bigger town coming from Mali. I didn't expect it to be a small town. And at first I was like, I don't know about this. But I think like my first semester solidified that I was going to stay, because I just had such a great time at orientation. I met a lot of amazing people. I met a lot of people who would later on change my life, who would actually point me in the direction of like what I would want to do, that I didn't even know that I wanted to do. And I didn't realize like I was gearing up to have like one of the best university times and careers ever, to be quite honest. And that's not even bragging. That's just TRU made my university experience so much fun. I met some of my bestest friends that I consider like family at this point. Like I still talk to them to this day. I have friends that I met since the very first workshops that we had together, like from the opening talks that I sat randomly next to them. And to this day, we're like the bestest of friends. So yeah, TRU does like a great job of setting you up for success. I find also that it was my attitude. I was like, I'm not sure about the size of the city, but I was like, you know what? It's a new time, it's a new experience, and I'm in a new country. So I was like, I'm gonna have a blast with it, and that's what I did.
That's pretty awesome. I can completely relate. I relate more to Yasir because I came completely unprepared as well. I didn't know anything. And I also came, I believe I came December 31st. Like I arrived at Kamloops New Year's Eve and it was pouring snow. It was snowing so much. So, and I was lost, but you know, TRU is a place where even when you come unprepared or you come overly prepared, I just found that everyone I talked to and all the friends I made, they came with a mindset. And then after their first semester, it was their home. And I think that's pretty amazing. Before we start with the conversation, I'm just going to tell our viewers that we will be answering questions later on. So if you have any questions for Yasir and Assi, please comment them below. So I have a question, and I think that many other viewers may have this question as well. When you first start university, you come with this mindset of, I'm going to study this and I'm going to graduate and I'm going to work in this. This is the job I want. So what was your mindset when you first started your program and when you first arrived at TRU? What was your plan? You're going to study that specific program, or did you change along the way? If you can talk a little bit about that.
Assi, you want to go first?
Oh yeah, okay. So when I came to TRU, I was like, I'm going to go into politics. Exactly. So, and I was not like, I had always thought about going into leadership and having my own thing, but I never actually fully thought I would do it. And so that was completely out of my mind. And I came to TRU and I was like, I'm going to do economics. Like, I'm going to go into politics. I'm going to, you know, just be a politician and blah, blah, blah. And I happened to have to take a course in sociology because it was an art course. So I went and sat in that class, and that teacher changed my entire perspective on a lot of things. And he spoke about things that really, truly spoke to me. And there was like one moment in the classroom where genuinely like our eyes made contact, and we just like, and he was like talking, and I felt like he was talking to me, which then like after the class, he had like this assignment, but I wasn't quite sure what it meant. So I went up to him and I just wanted to ask him questions, which led to him taking me for coffee. And the next day I went to administration. I was like, I'm going to change my major right now. And so that's really how I went into sociology, and like the research of behavioral patterns. And to be honest, like that has helped me throughout my entire career. Like it doesn't matter where I have fluctuated a lot. But even through that has still resonated true to me. So yeah, I went in with a plan, but then it was just like, never mind. You're not going to do that.
That's pretty cool. I love how, and that's another thing I didn't expect, because I grew up watching, you know, American movies where you see the classrooms and you feel that disconnect a bit with the professors in class. And that was my biggest fear when I came to study university in Canada, because I was very shy when I first came. And my biggest fear was, will I not have the courage to speak with my professors? And then once I started TRU, they were so approachable. And as you said, like they can even take you for coffee. They call you for office hours, and even they're able to meet you outside of office hours. And that really just made me so comfortable. And I think that was the first step for me to stop being that shy. I was finally able to feel that connection with the professors. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Yasir? What was your plan? Because you did mention the MBA and then
Yeah.
you've changed.
Yeah, I want to share a bit of an underdog story here as well going forward. I did my undergrad in Malaysia in my business degree. I wasn't super passionate about business, I'll be honest. It was just one of those things you do because what else are you going to do? So naturally, I was looking into further education, and the MBA at TRU came to mind. I was like, okay, I fit the criteria. I came to TRU, I did the MBA, and I realized how bad I am at math. Like, oh my God, I couldn't do basic calculation. I was sitting in a basic accounting class, and I was the only one in my entire class who failed that class. That was my first semester. And I was like, okay, this is not going in the direction I want it to go. Clearly, there's some problem here. So at the time, I was doing a lot of public speaking work on the side. In my first semester, I really, really was enjoying it. And like you, I was very shy. So the fact that I was overcoming that at the start, it was very motivating for me. So very quickly, I started mentoring other students with public speaking, and I realized I really enjoy that teaching aspect, that instructing aspect. I just went and I booked an appointment with one of the counselors at TRU. And I said, I don't know, like, I'm not really doing well in my program. What are some of the options? And then she listened to my story. One of the things she did really well was just not give me any solutions. She was just asking question after question, allowing me to tell her my story. And then she said, everything you're telling me points in the direction of education. Why aren't you doing a master's of education? So there's a master's of education program. I'm like, yeah, there's a whole building here, faculty of social work and education. I said, okay, let's see what that program looks like. And then sure enough, I looked into it. It looked fantastic. I switched over into the MEd program. Now, when I switched into the MEd, I was very excited because they had a stream for counseling there. And I really love social skills and learning how to listen to people. But within the first semester of joining, TRU decided to axe the counseling program. And I was in the MEd going into counseling, and now there's no counseling. I was like, okay, now what do I do with this degree? So I finished the whole degree. I graduated, thankfully, top of my class as well. But I was completely unsure. I didn't know what to do with an education degree, because if you want to teach here, you need some sort of certification as well. I didn't want to finish a master's, invest more and more education. So I was pretty lost for the first, I would say, 6 months after my graduation. If I had to give tips to anyone, do not be in my position. Do your research before you graduate. Don't wait till you graduate and then, oh my God, I need to find a job. How do I do that? Yeah. So what I ended up doing is I actually worked with a career mentor. I actually hired someone. They showed me what my career options were. And I completely forgot that I have an HR degree from Malaysia that I can use. So they said, listen, you're really good at talking to people. You're really good at mentoring people. Why don't you look at something in recruitment? And it's that idea that really got me into looking into HR firms and whatnot. And I think a month after my conversation with her, I landed my first job here in Vancouver.
That's pretty cool. That's exciting. And you helped many students as well during your university years, because you were part of, were you part of the Toastmasters Club? Yeah. I think that's how I met you, from knowing that you were part of a club. So now, after hearing your stories, I don't feel that bad, because I've changed majors 3 times until I found what I was very passionate about. And I always felt like the underdog, because so I got into business as well. And at first I was certain that I was going to go into accounting because I liked math. And then
not really.
I failed the whole semester of accounting because it was tough. Accounting, you really need to put in the time. And I was in a place where I wanted to put in the time to academics, but I also wanted to enjoy my life outside of the academics. So then I changed to finance because it was numbers. And then I got a position as a social media ambassador, and then I fell in love with marketing. And then I changed my major on like the 3rd year. So now I don't feel as bad, because I always felt bad about telling people, yeah, I got in university and I changed major 3 times. But I think it happens. We usually get in with this perception of this is what I want. But then once you really start living the university life and you go to different courses, you meet professors, you participate in clubs, you meet other people from around the world, you really find who you are, and then you really decide what do you want to do after.
Yeah, and
So that's
just to build on what you're saying there as well, I feel like a lot of us go into university with the mindset that I need to know exactly what I'm doing with my life at the age of 18 or 19 or whatever. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do at 18. The decisions I was making when I was 18, my God, Lord help me.
Yeah.
I feel like university is a time to experiment with things. And for me personally, it's been the process of elimination. This is what I absolutely do not want to do. What else can I do? And if you go into university with that mindset, I think you're going to have a lot more luck with your career future as well.
Yeah.
I
And I
think so.
one of the things that like I learned was also like don't judge people for the choices that they're making.
Hmm.
Um, and I learned that the hard way because I'm like, if somebody had to judge me for my choices, oh boy. Um, and to be honest, like I found that almost it's also a cultural thing almost like, you know, when you're leaving home, I feel like you may relate to that. You guys will probably relate to this, but for me, I was like, all I'd heard my whole life was like, you need to be a business person or you need to like be a lawyer, a doctor. But those are all very niche places that like are very particular and you have to love it. Whereas like if you go into it, and you don't love it, you're going to have a really, really hard time with it.
Hmm.
That was like the most extremely difficult part of it. Cause like I went into politics because I thought that, you know, that was the way to go, you know, and I was like, that would be the best choice to please my parents. And when you get into university, you also realize that you have to please yourself and you have to be happy with the choices that you make because at the end of the day, the person who's gonna have to live with it is you. You know, as much as I love my parents, they don't have to deal with the consequences of my choices. They're just
Right.
they're watching me live my life and they're trying to guide me, but at a certain point it's like you need to make those choices for yourself because otherwise you just start not to like it and that's when you just fail everything.
Yeah.
um, and so I was like, honestly, I should have just gone into it and been in the group that I was judging the most in my orientation, which was like, I think it was general. Like, is it a general degree? Because you know how they like segment people? They had the general one. I don't know if they still have it. But they had the little general section for people who didn't know what they wanted to go into yet. And I'm like, they are so indecisive, la 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 la. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have gone into that because that would have helped me narrow down faster and I wouldn't have
Mm.
gone through a semester of anguish feeling like I'm not doing well enough. But it just happened that I just wasn't doing what I wanted to do because the moment I changed, my grade just skyrocketed.
And I think it's also the fact that we're internationals, and I think that that's that extra pressure of, you know, I'm paying tuition, I have certain time on my visa or my study permit, and I
Yeah.
really need to know what I'm doing. But it's not, that's not necessarily true. And there's so many resources or so many people you can meet outside of your academics to really figure it out. Because I don't know for you, but for me, joining clubs and applying
Yeah.
for things outside, which I only did on my second year, because I always thought it was in my head coming from a country where, like in Brazil, that wasn't very popular at the time.
Yeah.
So for me, clubs were a waste of time because I didn't grow up with it. But then once I started joining them, and I remember I even became the president of the finance club once I changed my major. But those that really helped me and helped me find out who I was and what I wanted. And then I felt more confident in not knowing what I wanted because I had all the support around me. So I think it's also the fact that we do have that extra pressure of being internationals as well. And I think it's something that's not widely spoken, but it's everyone goes through it.
Yeah. And I think even making use of the resources that you have, like career counseling, going to in general counseling, I feel like there's a big stigma around that. And I'm like, you have to
Yeah.
take care of yourself because university is hard. I I didn't think that I would have a hard time with everything in my environment. In my mind, that was not going to be a factor. And it ended up being a huge factor, actually, in being able to perform at the level that I wanted to perform at. And I think that if I could give myself advice at 18, I know I probably wouldn't want to hear it, but if I could give myself advice, I would be like, listen, you need to make sure that, like, not only do you reach out to the clubs and get more involved, which I mean, I did, but um, use more of the resources that are also available to you that are free. Like they're free for students, and you should make use of it and build those connections.
I agree. I now I'm curious because the moment I realized this is it, I've graduated, what do I do now? I remember walking up through the stage and I'm like, oh, this is it. This is like the last connection I have with my academics. What do I do now? It's just at the same time, you're so happy, but you're like emotional because you haven't, it's done. So when did you get that feeling of now I really need to start focusing on my career? Because it's something that you always kind of leave on the side during your academics, but when did you realize that, oh, now is the time?
I think when you're trying to pay rent and you don't have a job, that it really hits you in the face. I was lucky enough to get a job before I graduated, so I had someone I was working with at the time, and I was going to move to Vancouver prior. So I was like, okay, I'm feeling really good about this job. So I didn't put any effort into applying for any other jobs. I didn't look at the market. I didn't prepare a resume, nothing. I was like, I know this guy, whatever. Fast forward, I finished my studies in December. And then in, I think, the last week of December, I actually moved out to Vancouver, and the job wasn't what I thought it was going to be, like, at all, right? And I did not have a plan B at this point. It was all in or nothing. So it was a strange realization that I wasted a lot of time, even though I considered myself being very active on campus. One really important thing I realize is during your education, you are accumulating a skill set, right? Whether it's in accounting, finance, whatever. That's the skill set you need to perform in the job you're looking for. What I didn't realize is finding a job itself is a completely separate skill set. Just because you know how to do a task XYZ does not mean you know how to get that job. Yep. So during my entire time at university, I should have attended more of these workshops. I should have gone to the career department. I didn't do any of that until I was stuck in that situation. So I kind of I put myself in a pretty hard spot right after graduating. And I think with a lot of international students, we have this mentality of I need to find a job. Like, I don't care what job it is. I want to make sure it gets me my PR. I'm willing to get whatever placement I find. And I was in that mindset. So a scarcity mindset where you think you'll take whatever. And I think a lot of students are in that mindset as well. And it can be particularly damaging because your first job is probably going to be the most important one. It lays the foundation of your experience. So for me, just to give you an insight, what I thought I was doing was doing the social media and everything for this group of hair salons. What I was actually doing is being the receptionist at the hair salon. Very, very different things and very different from what I was initially promised, right? So, of course, a month or two into it, I was like, we're just going to wait till this picks up. This is going to go somewhere, but clearly this wasn't heading in any direction. And then I started thinking, you know what, I should have really put more time and attention into this. And the moment I realigned myself with learning about networking, learning about resumes, hiring a career mentor, within a month of me doing that, I had job opportunities lined up for myself. So if you're a student watching this and you want to avoid that situation, please start well ahead before you graduate. Make a list of the places you really want to work for, and don't wait for any position to come your way. Be selective, because this is going to be your future going forward.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I had a very interesting experience with that. So here we go. My story is a caution tale. Okay, I'm just going to put that out there for students. Not only be selective, but also do your research on the company that is hiring you. So after graduation, I'm going to swear 1 second. My holy shit moment, that's what it's called. My holy crap, oh my God, this is real life right now. Like, you're done being a student and being a baby, really. Because up to that point, like, if your parents support you, in my opinion, you're still a bit of a baby because you're not worrying about the real things in life. So for me, after I graduated in October, and I had a job lined up to move to Vancouver. And I thought that job was going to be marketing because that's how they sold it. When I got there, it was actually physical sales. So going around talking to people and so on, I was like, you know what, let me give it. I was like, I'm going to give myself 3 days to see how this works. And after 3 days, it was still bad. And there was like a lot of shady things going on with the payment. So then I was like, nope, I'm not going to be a part of this. And so I started applying for jobs online, and I was super selective. But what I didn't do was I didn't research the company that I was working for enough. Turned out to be a scam company. There was a whole investigation about it. It was a whole mess. And I basically sobbed my way for a month through life, and almost even went back home to take a break. And I was going to work back home and then maybe come back to Canada because I wasn't sure, because it was just such a traumatic experience. So I want to caution people against that. Like, really, really do your research and be very, very careful of what information you're putting out there. Only use like job sites that are very safe to apply to, because if it's not safe, you will find those jobs that are not good. And those scammers out there are really, really good. Like, the contract that was given to me was very well done. Like, I showed it to actually, because there was an investigation done on it, I had to get police protection. That's how crazy it got. So when I brought it in, they scanned it through, and then they found like the little things that you would not know if you're not looking for, if you're not trained. And that company / scam was actually on the Canadian radar. So they exonerated me. Everything is fine. I got exonerated as basically a victim. But that's the thing, is that you have to be very, very careful when you're looking into these things, and keep all of that information. Like, keep your hiring information, your hiring letters and things like that, because you never know. So if I hadn't had all that proof, I would have been found guilty of something that I didn't do and didn't know of. So that is my caution to you. And after that, I was very, very careful with where I was applying, and how I was applying. And I wish I would have gone to those resume workshops like a lot too, because when I had to start writing a resume, then it became a whole different thing, where like I was watching tutorials and using like all of these different skill sets and building it. And I turned out to be really good at it. Like, it's just a skill that I naturally have. But that's one of the things that I really want to caution people against, because that was a pretty traumatic experience and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
100%. You always need to do research. I didn't know that as well. Another thing that I wish I could go back to my time at TRU and redo was take more advantage of the career department, because I didn't. I was just too young. I thought that, I'll worry about jobs when I graduate. This is when I'll start worry about. But they help you so much. And even with the research on companies, they know what's going on with companies in Canada, and they can help you. You just book an appointment and you talk to them, and they're there for you. So that's something I advise all students, whether you're new, whether you're in your third year, or whether you're fresh graduate, you can still go to the department and you can still ask for help. So do take advantage of that, because it can save you a lot of stress. And it can save you from being scammed. You never know. And always, what I personally do, especially when you're new to Canada, it's your first job offer, go give the contract to a friend or a mentor. Let them see it for you, because they have more experience. So I always show my mentors, is this a good deal? Am I getting into something good? Am I on the right track? So always have that as well. And Yasir can probably talk a lot more about how to find mentors and how to get those connections. But it's very important in Canada, and it's something that, again, as internationals, we don't realize how important it is. So now that we kind of mentioned, taking advantage of the career department, what else do you think that it made a difference, and that you would advise students to do it to help them with their job hunt once they graduate?
Okay. I'm going to get into that part. This is my expertise. This is my domain right here. So being in recruitment, I get the idea of what it's like on the inside, what it's like to receive the resumes. I go through hundreds every single day. And being someone who's been on the other side looking for a job, you can kind of mismatch the two. Like, oh, why was I doing that when the process is like this? So I want to shower you with some interesting statistics that I wish I knew prior to applying. Okay. When I started my research, I thought searching for a job meant going to Indeed, going to LinkedIn, looking for my whatever job fit, apply, call it a day, and then you wait. I thought that was how you find a job. If you look at the stats, 70% of all the jobs that are ever hired for are never posted on any job board. 70%. This means that 100% of our focus is going to 30% of the job market. And I feel like a lot of the students that I've talked to, this is their primary, and in most cases, their only strategy. They tell me, well, what else can I do if I'm not applying online? The problem with this is it gives you the mindset where there are only finite positions available, and you have to pick and choose, and whatever you get out of that, you just have to go with it. So if there are 6 companies you've never heard of, you applied, and one of them reaches out, okay, that's the only one that reached out to me. I guess I'm going to this one. It doesn't really give you any choice. What I recommend is tapping into that 70% of what we call the hidden job market, the jobs that are not posted anywhere. So just to give you a hierarchy of how a company hires, it's important to remember that hiring people is an expensive process. It's not, by the time they get to the online job posting, they've tried a number of things. So the first thing they'll do is, suppose there's a team of 5 people, right? And one of those leaves, you've got 1 slot left, 4 people on the team. They'll ask everyone in the company, do you know anyone in the company who wants to work in this position? Suppose they don't get anyone. Do you know anyone outside the company who wants the position? Suppose they still don't know anyone. Do you know anyone in your organizations, maybe the Rotary Club, maybe the Toastmasters Club, who might be a good fit? Maybe they still don't know. Okay, fine. Has anyone reached out to you at all on LinkedIn or email? Still no? Okay, you know what? Let's put up a job posting and see if anyone applies. Yeah. So by the time they get to those online job boards, they have considered all of those things. And I think this is where our focus should be, not just applying online to 100 different places. For me, this was a big game changer.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, that's how I have the job I have today. Plain and simple. You really have to tap into your network. And I feel like also people need to learn how to network smart, not just network to network, because that was a thing. And I was just like, no, you need to do it in a very smart way, in the sense that you're establishing a mutually beneficial relationship with someone. And you know that you can reach out to them at any point given in time where they can find you something. Or if you're ready to depart your company, being ready for that, that means that you need to, I would say, reach out to the people you know first, and reach out to your business network first before reaching out to anybody else. Because number one, that's how you'll get the job. And number two, that's how you get a decent job, because you also want to work for a company that people you trust have worked at and have said great things about it, because you don't want to find yourself in an environment that's very hostile, very negative, because you'll find that you won't flourish, or you'll be gone within months. I promise you that. You may think you're willing to stick it out or be ready to stick it out. You're not. And that's the hard truth of it all. Yeah. So that's how I got my job, is that one of my friends, I had mentioned that I was ready to move on. And I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to start passively looking, because I was also debating on starting my businesses, which I did. I did both. Wouldn't recommend it, but I did both. And she, within, I think 3 days, she connected me with those people. I had an interview. The next day I had my second interview. By the end of the week, I had a job offer. So and it's an amazing company. And because she's been there so long, that also lets you know of their values, because you really want to do that. I believe in being invested in a company's value. Also, yeah, that's another thing. Find a business that's value aligns with your own, and find either a cause or a value of your own, because that way, number one, you're getting attached to the value and the cause. That's one of the things that my mentor taught me. She was like, for you not to get emotionally invested in the business, or for you not to get hurt by certain feedback, because feedback isn't always meant to be hurtful. Sometimes it's meant to be constructive, and sometimes it just is what it is. And so if you find a company that you can actually invest in their value, in their core mission, that's a better way for you to not only work hard, but also protect yourself. Because that's the thing that you'll learn when you start a job, is that you sort of are emotionally vulnerable, especially for your first job, because everything is so new and so volatile. So I would say find a mentor who has worked for a really long time, so that they can give you tips on how to also handle yourself emotionally. Present yourself as someone who's strong, but also stands behind whatever they believe in, because you'll find that those will be things that will be, for sure, a little bit tried, not a little bit, a lot tried when you're working.
Now, see, that is such a good point. I love the whole networking aspect. And just to build on your story as well, I have never gotten a job applying online. I've only got it through networking. How I got this job, I actually met the guy at the gym. We're just working out together. It's like, what are you doing in Vancouver? I told him. He's like, what kind of job are you looking for? Next day, I sent him the resume. I got an interview. I just want to share a very quick story about a comparison, how effective networking can be. I applied for a role at a specific university, and at the same time, I had reached out to a lot of their managers there. I wanted just to have a conversation, nothing to do with a job. Just, hey, I want to talk to you about what you do every single day, what makes a good fit. While waiting to get on a meeting, I actually got rejected from the automatic online application. Once I talked to the manager, she said, okay, I'll schedule you in for an interview. It's like, what do you mean? I just got rejected from the application. They're like, oh, no, don't worry about that. I'll just schedule you in for an interview. Yeah. So it goes to show when you prioritize actually talking to people you'll be working with, it does wonders even for your job search.
Yeah, and they will vouch for you. That's the thing too, is that I think people don't really think about that. I'm like, if someone knows you, like truly knows you, they will go to bat for you. And to be honest, as my VP now likes to joke, he's like, the moment I talked to you, I was like, oh yeah, forget about the others. We're not doing that. She was vouched for, and then he talked to me and we just like clicked like that because we have very similar personalities. And so that was in contest. But for other jobs that I've applied for in the past, I mentioned one singular person that I knew that sort of worked at the company. And when I do that, they actually go and ask. It was the same with one of my friends that I brought into one of the companies I worked at. I was asked about them and I was like, I will vouch for their character any day. They're like this is how they are. And that person got the job. And I know of several stories that have happened like that as well. So do know that if you build a strong enough connection, people will fight for you to get that opportunity and they will put you in those places too.
I agree with that. And those are very good points. But also there's something that I always think is in order for you to get those connections and you get those people to trust you, you really need to prove yourself. Because what I found is no one is going to vouch for you if they don't really know you're going to be good, because no one wants to put their name on the line for someone who won't perform or who's going to cause trouble. So it's especially on your first job. That's what I tell recent grads is prove yourself. You need to do your best work, even if you're staying, over hours, or it's the time that you have to shine. It's the time that you have to prove that you're the best for that position and they can trust you and they can, really treat you as, especially as a recent grad. I always feel like at first, if we really gain that trust with our managers and directors and VPs, they treat you as their kid and they really want to see you grow. So I think that's also very important. That's what I found, especially in some companies in Canada. You have that family value where they really just want to see you grow when you prove that you're good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think too, not just your first job, I think the last 2 years of university are very important. So I would say not just the last 2 years, but they are the most important. I would say start building your network and really proving yourself to your network so that they know also what you can do. Whether that be in like doing events and things like that, but also building your character as to who you are as a person, your integrity and how you stand, and how you show yourself to the world. Like that is a really big thing that I think a lot of people don't think about. And then like, I'm not just saying like personal image, like look very nice. No, I mean character, like that, the fact that you will go above and beyond, that you are a kind person, that you stand behind what you say, and that people's efforts or investment in you aren't just going to go in vain, because that will be one of the key things, even if you have like recommendation letters for people to write, because that will be a thing. And they will also have to be your references. So proving yourself to your teachers and going above and beyond is not amiss,
Is there anything that you both saw as something very different in the Canadian job market or in the Canadian working environment that at first you were shocked with, that you had this perception of how it's like working in your country? And then once you came here and you saw how different that was, you were kind of shocked and you had to learn how to adapt. Is there anything that...
For me, was how flexible they are once you do join the company. So just to give you an idea, I work for a medium-sized HR firm. My idea was you get into a job, you have job responsibilities, you do those things, and then you kind of progress the ladder. what I realized very quickly was my company allows me to build my own role. So every month I'll have a meeting with my manager and say, Yasir, what do you enjoy doing? What do you not enjoy doing? And I'll tell them that, and they'll say, okay, you know what, for your career trajectory, we're thinking of adding some of these responsibilities, some of those responsibilities. So it's not like you just have to build on this ladder. So if I'm a recruiter, I'm going to become a recruitment specialist and a manager, whatever. It doesn't have to be that way. Maybe there are other things in the company you really enjoy doing. They'll mix those. They'll make an ad hoc role. So for me, that was really, I didn't never thought about that. I thought I was hired to do X job. I will do X job till I die. That's kind of all it's going to be. And the other thing is just how much the employer invests in their employees, of course, given you are in the right company. My managers are some of my best friends. They're my mentors. They really take time out of their own day to mentor me and ask me about what my interests are. I never in a million years thought if I was working for a quote unquote company that I was going to get that kind of attention. So I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And one of the things that I think shocked me the most was sort of like the blend between personal life and work life. I find that here people are very, very friendly, and your coworkers almost fuse into your personal life in a way. And so learning to find that balance is very interesting. And I think that was like one of the weirdest parts for me, because I had coworkers who were like, yeah, I want to take you for drinks. I want to hang out with you. I want to come to your house. And I'm just like, that's not in my mind. Like that was never a thing. I was like, you go to work is separate and life is separate, and it's not. And also what Yasir said, where like my bosses will legitimately ask me, they're like, so how are you doing today? You look slightly like, I'd like to say I have a very poker face, to the point where it looks really mean. And so they've learned the nuances of that, which I didn't know I had nuances until one day my boss was like, he's like, your brows look a little too intense today. And I'm just like, I don't know what you mean. And he's like, no, talk to me. And, even supporting what you do outside of work. When I say like, in being a business owner and also working for a company, my company supports what I do to the fullest, to the point where it's almost like kind of weird to me. But that's just how they are. That's just how amazing they are. Like my boss will legitimately be like, hey, listen, like if you need me to, get on a call with you and talk some ideas through, or you want to talk about your financials and how things are coming, or you want to like, if you need this resource, just let me know what you need and I will go find it for you, so you don't have to look for it, because my network is bigger than yours. Or like to my CEO, who will be like, if I have a talk, she'll be like, okay, so what's the topic? Book a time. Let's have a rehearsal and you talk me through it. And she's an amazing speaker, so she'll like give me pointers on how to just flow with it and how to be. To our finance VP being like, okay, I want to see your data sheet and what it's built like, so I can support you better. So having those things that you're kind of just, it's almost surreal a little bit. That is one thing that I did not expect.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And just how different here is, if you have the initiative of going to ask your manager or your supervisor, director to do something, they'll be completely willing to give you that. It's not, as Yasir said, it's not only, this is my job, that's all I'm going to do. What I found is that in Canada, if you build that trust with your supervisor and you go and you say, hey, I really want to learn about this, is an experience I want to gain, they're extremely willing to let you gain that. And I think that makes a difference on your career as well, because you have the opportunity to really not grow only within that set position, but you can learn any skills you want if you have the motivation, if you have the initiative. So that's what I really thought it was really cool about Canada in general, is just the companies are very open. I mean, if you're in the right company, but they tend to be very open and they help you grow.
Just a quick note on that as well. It's a lot of companies will learn from you as well. I want to give you a quick example. So when I came to my company, they didn't really have anything on social media like at all for the past 25 years. The president of the company actually found one of my LinkedIn videos teaching people how to get jobs, and it was like, We want to do more of that. How do we do that? So they got me on a marketing team, and now they have a full-fledged content strategy. So it's not always them reaching out to you, hey, do you want to do this? But sometimes you have to reach out, hey, I think this would be really valuable. Make a case for yourself, and that's how you line yourself up for promotions as well.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, and it's also, that's something as a recent grad we don't think of, because we think, oh, we're so young, we know nothing. But especially in this generation, is be confident on what you feel like you're very good at, especially when it comes to tech. Because a lot of times you're going to get into a company and you're going to know a lot. It's just in your head, you think, oh, I'm a recent grad, I'm going to stay quiet because I don't know anything. But sit on the meetings. When you have team meetings, talk, show that you know, and that's how they're really going to trust you. Because we know a lot, we always know more than we think that we do. I think we tend, especially as young professionals and recent grads, we tend to kind of undersell ourselves, but just be very confident. I think confidence is key, especially on your first job.
Yeah, I think also we bring the perspective of people of color. So that's a pretty big thing. I think a lot of, especially if you go into a company where there's not a lot of diversity, and like certain things that you don't, you're kind of just like, for me, that's been something that I've been very vocal about, from when I worked to an accelerator to when I worked for a financial company, and now I work in a hotel company. And so I've sort of brought that perspective where I didn't even realize that it was something that they don't know what they don't know. So when you bring that perspective, most of the time it's well received. And if it's not well received, it will always lead to a bigger conversation.
I agree with that. How was your experience? Like in my first job, it's a very international job where I currently work. It's my first job and still my job now. So I didn't really have that feeling of I'm the only international. Have you guys ever been through that? And how was that adjustment?
Yeah, I feel I'm pretty lucky. I have sorry to interrupt you there, Essie. I have the most diverse workplace I have ever seen. Like literally every person is from a different nationality. So I feel pretty comfortable with that. And I think that's actually quite common here in Vancouver. The diversity in Vancouver in places like Toronto, even more so. Not to say a lot of them are international students. Some of them got their international visa and came here. But I feel like if you're trying to get into the Canadian workforce, you really have to align yourself with other people. And the reason I say this is because a lot of us come from our own country and we're only comfortable talking to our own group of people, right? Maybe speak our own language. You really have to outgrow that mindset. If you're going to find employment in Canada, you really need to learn how to speak to people from other nationalities. That's why if you're an international student, you're in orientation, you're in class, make some friends from other countries, because that's really going to pave the way for you when you actually start getting a job in Canada.
Yeah. I haven't worked in the most diverse places, I'll be very honest. But in where they lack diversity, they also make up in understanding, and being willing to have a conversation about it. And especially in light of everything that's been happening with like all of the movements and all of the uprising and sort of, I wouldn't say the emancipation, I would just say the amplification of voices. That's been really, really interesting, because I've had even my former company sort of reach out to me to see if with what I do on the side, like if we can help them have more of a diverse work space. And in the different industries too that I've worked in, the diversity is not really a thing, like when you look at the startup business, it's very, it's not really diverse. It has diverse pockets, but it's not that diverse. So how do we remedy that? And then in the finance industry here, it's not super prominent, but I think they're also making strides towards it. But in working for a company where you feel like you're the only person of color, or like you feel like you're very much in minority, I think it's also important for you to stick by your voice. If there's things that make you uncomfortable, speak about it. If people say stuff to you that are inappropriate, tell your supervisor. Like, don't be shy about doing that. I wasn't, and I was very upfront, and I was like, there's just things that like, we're not going to cross the line there, and stay professional and stay very respectful, but also be like, this makes me uncomfortable and it's not appropriate. And you'll find that it's a very supportive environment. Like, I think for me, it was funny for one of my second job, the thing that my future boss told me, he's like, so you know that this like city's pretty white, right? And I was like, yes. And he's just like, okay, so how do I support you in not feeling a lot more uncomfortable than, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable to the point where you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to go back to Kamloops now. So it's really great when you find those people who are going to support you, and making sure that you also build that trust with your boss, because your boss will be your biggest champion and your biggest defender, or they should be.
I agree. And that's the beauty of Canada. Everywhere you go, either they're very diverse, or if they're not, they're so open because the country is so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is used to seeing different people from them. So I think that's the beauty, that a lot of times we're scared when we come because we don't want to be the minority, or we don't want to feel like we're outcasted. But in Canada, everyone comes from a different place, and even if they're Canadian, they have a different background. So they can be Canadian, born here, but their parents are not. So they have that international understanding as well. So I think that really helps, and that helps with the confidence in the office. At least that was a big thing for me, because when I first came, when I used to be very shy, even though I was fluent in English, I spoke English growing up my whole life. When I would be the only international, I would get really shy. And for some reason, I would blank out in English. I couldn't speak English at all. But it really helped to have that international environment around me. It really made me confident in my own skin, with my accent, with my grammar mistakes. So it's just normalizing that we're different and we bring so much here. So I think last question is, would you change anything on your journey after graduation? Is there anything you would do differently, or you would do the same?
I genuinely wouldn't change a thing. Like I find that there's beauty in ups and downs, because they make you stronger and they teach you a lot of lessons that you need to know. And one of the things that I wish I would tell myself, actually, I wouldn't change it, but I wish I would have been kinder to myself, because it's hard to be a newly graduated student, and you're trying to figure everything out, and it's like, I graduated 4 years ago. And my journey has been up and down and all over the place. I've changed job descriptions. And so give yourself space, because also here's the thing, you might not actually do what you went to school for, because I'm not doing that. And so being kinder to yourself and just letting yourself have room to make mistakes and fall down, but always get back up. I think that that's going to be the best part of the journey, because to be honest, if I had a perfect journey, that would have been so boring, because now all of those mistakes and all of those whops moments, when I think of them now, I laugh so hard. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to make way more mistakes in the future too. And I will probably look back at them and be like, well, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. What about you, Yasir? Would you change anything on your journey?
Well, that's always a tricky question. Of course, there's things you can improve, but I feel like if I didn't have all these hurdles, I wouldn't be as passionate about helping students if I had a perfectly smooth process. Like, I didn't have any problem finding a job. Why are you having a problem finding a job? One thing I would tell myself is try to take more control over things instead of having things being handed to you. Specifically in a job search, instead of waiting for some company to offer you something, or applying to a bunch of companies and then waiting for whichever comes through and taking that job, be more specific about which companies you want to work for. Talk to people in that company. For me personally, it was also about, do I really want to do this? Because in your head, you might think, you know what, I can do all these responsibilities. That's great. But when you talk to someone who's doing that every single day, you start thinking, you know what, that doesn't really sound like a lot of fun. That doesn't really sound like something I want to do. And just to give you a quick example, some of these positions that I was, quote unquote, really passionate about, I talked to some people prior to applying, just, hey, I want to know what you do every single day. I'm thinking of applying. And they said, well, it's a very regulatory environment. If you want to enlist any change, it's going to take at least 6 months. There's no room for creativity here. I was like, why would I want to apply for this job? It doesn't fit what I'm looking for at all. So if I had to give myself advice, is be more picky, like you mentioned, Asi, as well. Do your research prior into the companies that you want to work for, like you mentioned as well. Just a lot of these disasters might be averted, and just really focus on your self-esteem, because I feel like we accept any position that comes through us because of a lack of self-esteem. You can find a lot of value in yourself if you really think about it long enough and be picky about what position you're going for.
Yes. And on that last note of like be picky and self-esteem, also know how much you're worth.
Mm-hmm.
Know how much you should be paid, because
Yes.
last job compared to this one, I'm actually being paid what I should be paid. So know how much you're worth in the market, and what your skills are worth, because don't let yourself be lowballed. Like if you want to and you're really passionate about the company, sure. Because that was the thing. For example, for my first job, I definitely was lowballed, but I was also looking to learn and get a lot of experience, and that's what I did. And know what sector you're in. So if you're in the nonprofit area, just know that the prices might be lower because they're nonprofits. So know what your median is in the sector that you work in, because that's very important, because you also deserve to be paid the amount of work that you're putting through, and you should not be lowballed. So don't be afraid to turn down offers when they're not paying you enough, because I promise you, if you are the candidate that they want, they will come back with a counter offer.
Well said.
That's really good advice, especially because a lot of times speaking about money is where we don't want to speak about money. We think that, whatever we're offered, and in a lot of companies, you have room to negotiate. So be confident, get in there and negotiate your price, because you're the only one that knows your price. You're the only one that knows your skills. You're the only one that's been doing that for the amount of time you have. So that's a really good point as well.
And the fact that we're bilingual, like most of us are bilingual. Like if you speak English and you speak your native language, you are bilingual. I don't care what nobody says. So most of us are bilingual, and that is a skill. And please, take a budgeting class. Like that is my best advice that I can give you. Take a budgeting class. Know how much money you're paying for rent, utilities, internet, your phone. Those may seem like little costs, but they add up. So know how much money you're making and start a savings account, please.
Some great advice. Well, I think we had a really good discussion. I'm feeling very inspired, and I think all of the viewers as well, because we touch on a lot of subjects that it's not usually widely spoken, or we're scared of speaking about it. I've been looking on my phone and see if we had any last questions. There's one from Andy Cabrera. She asked if you have any advice for studying and working at the same time. So I'm assuming studying and having a part-time job. Do you have any advice on balancing that?
Yeah, I feel like most of us have done that, a part-time job, right?
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest, the amount of fresh graduates that I've talked to who've done no extracurricular activities because they were working part-time is pretty high. Now, I understand you have responsibilities, you've got to pay rent and all of that, but the only way you can acquire experience in university is by doing things in university. If I had to go back, I would tell students, do not prioritize your part-time job over extracurricular activities. Most of the things that entry-level jobs look for, that experience comes from your extracurricular activities. So for me personally, I was doing public speaking workshops. I was doing public speaking coaching for people. I was doing Instagram, LinkedIn marketing. I was doing my part-time job at the cinema, and I was doing a full-time master's thesis at the same time. Safe to say, I almost never went out. I hermited myself in my room. My friends probably saw me once a week, if at all. So recognize the sacrifices you have to make, and there will be sacrifices. So for me personally, it will be education. Remember, that's why you're here, because I know a lot of people who will skip class to go to work. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Education first, extracurricular second, part-time jobs third. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I would say so. I am a master planner. If you can tell, I'm a project manager. Wonder why I'm in the field. It was like I was basically groomed to become one. I would say get a planner. It will be the best investment you have. Get a planner, start planning your days. I know this may sound very annoying because everybody wants to be spontaneous and be able to do everything that you want on your own time. But like Yasir said, you have to make sacrifices. So in my time, I was in leadership as the president of the Model UN Club. I was a social media ambassador, and I was also working part time for UNICEF at different time. And I was also doing my full Bachelor of Arts, so I had 5 classes. I cannot tell you that a planner was my best friend because it helped me schedule out my days. It also invest in meal prepping. I know nobody wants to do it, but I promise it will save you so much time. If you can just meal prep almost 3 days at a time, if you don't want to eat the same thing, just meal prep 3 days at a time and start interchanging when you're eating what, because it will save you a lot of time. It will stop you from being distracted. Also put your phone on do not disturb when you're doing things so that you cannot get distracted. Because I know it's really hard, but like Yasir's order, I know honestly there's no arguing to that from my perspective anyway. But investing in a planner and trying to also schedule your days out at a time and find friends and clubs that you're working in, because you're going to be invested in that club anyway. So find the people who have that same mentality as you and try to almost do things at a group when you're studying, because they will push you and they will help you get that focus. So if you find people who are like-minded, you can be social and you can also do things. If being social is a big thing for you, for me it wasn't. I was like, if I have social time, I have it. If I don't, I'll live. There's such things called FaceTime, so I'll be fine. But just know that you do have to make that sacrifice. That might be the one last thing on your mind.
Yeah, and I think changing your perspective as well, because once you're involved in clubs, you meet those people and you're doing things during the day. A lot of times, I don't know, but at least coming from Latin America, the idea that we have of socializing is going out at night.
Yeah.
So for me, was really shifting that mindset that I can still hang out with a friend during the day and I'm still socializing. I don't necessarily need to be out and about until late at night and then wake up tired for my class or something like this. So at least that's how I felt, coming from Brazil, where going out at night is very popular. And once I shift that, I was not tired in class anymore. I had more time to sleep, which I really prioritize sleep. I'm someone who needs my sleep. So just finding out what really works for you. Your routine is the most important. Once you have a set routine that you're comfortable with, everything goes smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really happy. I think that, you talked a lot about amazing things that anyone can take, whether new students coming in now, students that are on their 2nd, 3rd, 4th year, or students that just graduated, or even alumni that graduated 5 years ago. I think everything was covered and it was very helpful for everyone. So I really appreciate you taking your time today to come talk to everyone.
Thank
you
you
very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. And then, do you have anything else to say before we close? We stop our live session.
Yeah, like if you want to find me, if you want more advice on job searching, whatever, I've got a whole YouTube channel that I'm going to pitch here. I've got more than 300 videos on the channel. So if you want to reach out to me, want some advice, check that out. LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Yasir Khan Coaching. You can find me there.
Yeah,
I'll put that on the link as well.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. I don't know. I have very different experiences. And if you have any questions about starting companies or anything like that, you can reach out to me. It's Assetou Koulibaly on LinkedIn and probably Instagram as well. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll share both your LinkedIn's and your YouTube, Yasir. And then, we'll be having this Thursday Talks every Thursday. So do follow us on Instagram at TRU World. And we'll be posting this video on YouTube. It's going to be saved here on Facebook. And we're also going to post on IGTV. So thank you again so much for joining us, guys. And have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.